Hi, I'm Torte de Lini. With the release of patch 7.37, many of your favorite carry heroes have lost their lust, like Weaver, Templar Assassin, and Anti-Mage, as their innate abilities are no longer shortcuts to their core abilities. Essentially, instead of gaining a free level in damage with gem and attack for Weaver or mana break for Anti-Mage, giving them an early game comfort in last hitting or kill opportunity during the first few levels, they must now spend the time and experience to level those abilities up. So let's check in on which heroes are standing strong this patch according to my expertise and data from Dota2ProTracker.com. This year is the year of the bear, as Ursa continues to remain strong at all stages of the game. In 7.36, he was very popular with his Grudge Bearer facet because it solved the core issue with the hero. How do you continue to build damage output on a hero that is consistently kited or slowed or stunned in fights? Grudge Bearer alleviated that dilemma by giving you damage whenever you are enraged, so items like Ag Scepter and Ag Shard became incredibly popular for the hero late game, as they were no longer wasted inventory slots just so you can survive with Ursa, but now directly contribute to your performance as a hard carry and your damage. What makes him still so good this patch is that his innate ability continues to completely resolve his early game, whereas other heroes like Templar Assassin and Weaver had their early game nerfed. Thanks to his innate ability Maul, which gives him approximately 11 more damage at level 1, his last hitting woes are a thing of the past, and he still has all his early game aggressive traits like stacking Fury Swipes on melee enemy offlaners to then slow them with a leveled Earth Shock for a kill. Now, the only key difference between Ursa in 7.36 and Ursa in 7.37 are the facet preferences. While Grudge Bearer is still very popular, Bear Down seems to be the go-to for high MMR players because it extends Ursa's applied debuffs to targets for longer. In 7.36c, they did reduce Ursa's Fury Swipe's reset time by 5 seconds, so there's definitely justification to this facet, on top of it working with your Skull Basher's stun duration and your Earth Shock slow. Grudge Bearer only works post level 6 when you unlock Enrage, and can be appealing if you know you're going to be locked down a lot from the enemy lineup. Bear Down works at all points in the game, from your first level in Fury Swipes and Earth Shock at level 1 and 2, to the late game when you have Abyssal Blade, Nullifier, and more. So pick the right facet that best suits you and your match. There's no real wrong answers here. By the way, if you love the channel, please support and subscribe. Over 83% of my audience last month were from drive-by viewers. Or you can check me out live on Twitch, testing out all your favorite heroes and builds. Maybe even subscribe to me there if you want to support the channels. While most people have been preoccupying themselves with Sven as a support hero, now nerfed in 7.37, Sven as a carry has slowly been buffed in 7.36a, b, and especially c, where his facet, Wrath of God, has been a bit more forgiving in terms of base damage reduction. So what that boils down to is your laning stage is now much easier to handle, where you now start with 1 or even 2 bracers in the lane to get that damage multiplier from your facet. Now in 7.37, bracers themselves don't give additional damage, but instead give additional health. So Sven has become this incredibly resilient hero in the lane with high levels of health as well as armor from his Warcry right from level 2. In a meta where you want the carry to soak up the lane for as long as possible, Sven has become a foundational rock in achieving that goal and doesn't mind the annoyance of let's say Sand King or the pokes from a Windranger in the offlane because of his combination of health and Warcry armor. So with the Wrath of God's facet's downside pretty much nullified as early as level 2, but still retaining the amazing bonus damage scaling from Sven's strength, Sven now comes online much earlier, hits harder, and can deal with a lot of popular meta rivaling enemy carries like Chaos Knight with Sven's Great Cleave, and Windranger thanks to Sven's Ag Scepter upgraded Stormhammer should you need it, and the fact that it dispels and cancels Windranger's Windrun. To add, Sven is a popular pick at high MMR games because he can be played as a pos 5 or pos 1 depending how the enemy team draft. With Lifestealer no longer part of the meta, Sven comes back into the mix with a few pos 1 counters, except for maybe Ursa, who can go toe to toe with him. In terms of build, if you've played him anytime in the past 3 years, he's still pretty much the same. Bracers into Power Treads for the strength and survivability, into Mask of Madness to give you attack speed to go with your farm, with the Echo Saber and Black King Bar and Blink Dagger to boot. You can even grab a Harpoon to keep enemies nearby for you, and Daedalus to beautifully wrap up all your amazing damage and 2-shot most enemies with the critical strike. All in all, a solid hero from start to finish and a real comfort pick for a lot of players. Don't forget his innate ability also deals even more damage to stunned enemies, so teamfights with his Stormhammer and alongside popular offlaners like Enigma, Sand King, or Beastmaster really plays well with Sven's follow through of massive damage. Speaking of popular laners with great farming capabilities, have we talked about Dragon Knight? Similar to Sven, Dragon Knight with the Fire Dragon Facet is fresh off the 7.37 printing press, as the Corrosive Dragon Facet has been nerfed across 7.36a, 7.36b, and 7.37, while the Fire Dragon Facet has been buffed in 7.36a and 7.36c. So it's not just that Fire Dragon is looking more appealing, it's also that Corrosive Dragon's Facet purpose as a strong influence to both the laning stage and mid-game ganks with Blink and Orchid has been nerfed too harshly to have as much of an impact as it once did. So DK now plays slower, not focused as much on early game ganks and pushing, and more about how stable of a laner he is and how much he can babysit his lane now as a position 1 carry, farming it endlessly while most offlaners can't bully him out just like everyone else in this top 5 list. The Fire Dragon Facet cleave effect can be understood in 2 parts. One, when in dragon form, you can only cleave at 50%, which is about half of Sven's great cleave at max level. However, number 2, when in dragon form, Dragon Knight cleaves equal to Sven's 100%, but evidently it's at range and thus it flashes. So as Dragon Knight, once you hit level 6, you can start farming stacked jungle camps incredibly quickly when in dragon form, and the cooldown is only really 40 seconds since the dragon form lasts 60 seconds from a 100 second total cooldown. So Dragon Knight is mostly farming well in dragon form, and the cooldown being so short for an ultimate ability means he can engage in a fight when need be. You're essentially playing a ranged version of Sven with high amounts of armor and health regen right from the start in the laning phase, all thanks to Dragon Knight's Dragon Blood innate ability. His itemization also furthers that tank-like capabilities of Dragon Knight with items like Black King Bar, Sange and Yasha for the movement, Blink Dagger to jump stun with Dragon Tail, and Satanic and or Daedalus. Dragon Knight also loves to go armlet because the health boss when activated is mitigated both by your innate ability as well as the Sange and Yasha amplifying that regen. So by minute 16, you're looking at a hero with over 30 armor, 3000 plus health, and a massive splash range damage output. Dragon Knight is such a comfortable pick for a lot of players, and he makes both defending and sieging high ground more comfortable to succeed thanks to his massive damage output. He also serves as a block pick against rivaling carry heroes like Chaos Knight, whose Chaos Strike critical damage is mitigated by Dragon Knight's armor, as well as CK's illusions being wiped out from the splash damage. Or how about against an anti-mage where his Manta style illusions do nothing and Dragon Knight shrugs off losing mana to AM's mana burn once he's in dragon form. Dragon Knight is just a straightforward hero to play, especially now that he's moved away from being an early game ganker to now a safe laning farmer. Despite receiving no changes in 7.37, Morphling has risen to popularity in this patch, both because of how the meta is starting to lean more towards heroes that can squat in their lane for the longest time, but also because the popularity of Bloodthorn is diminishing, which its component, Orchid, was a common item to prevent Morph from using Attribute Shift. This patch's heroes mostly revolve around physical damage output like, Phantom Assassin, and that means that not only can Morph kite out or around a lot of these heroes, but also that their damage is mitigated by Morphling armor levels due to his high level and agility thanks to Attribute Shift. But also his item builds such as Butterfly forces these heroes to pick up items they typically don't want to pick, like MKB. The only hero that can deal with Morph again is Ursa, and maybe also the rising star Slark, who's gotten his late game talents buffed, giving him a bit more viability late game. To be honest, outside of that, the hero hasn't received any changes in 7.37 as I mentioned before. The only real notable change for the hero is in 7.36a, where Morphling now attacks while in wave form for 50% of his damage. That 50% deduction is not a huge deal for Morphling, because he can always attribute shift more agi if need be, but also Morphling regularly picks up a Vladimir's Offering for 1, the mana regen to regularly use waveform, and 2, it also gives bonus base damage, which Morphling evidently has a lot of, and 3, finally, the lifesteal from Vladimir's Offering, while using the invulnerability from waveform, gives a lot of sustain to jungle for Morphling, on top of all the armor he receives when attribute shifting into agility. The value of Vladimir's Offering extends even further by always giving Morphling the option to force teamfights in the mid game, as the Vlad is a natural power spike aura item for him and for his team. You can always just pick up a Morbid Mask if you don't want to commit to that Vladimir's Offering anyway. One last remark to note is that in 7.36, Morphling also received a seemingly dull innate ability that reads, Morphling receives 50% of stat growth bonuses every half level instead of the full bonus at level up. That part isn't really important. What is important and is giving Morphling such power is the following. Morphling receives 100%, i.e. double, bonus stats from all attributes bonuses from the talent tree. So now we see Morphling players skipping out on Adaptive Strike, which was only really appealing early game when it gave bonus agility, now removed in 7.36, to pretty much grabbing as much stats as they can from the talent tree and just go hard on farming. This also shows that how waveform penalty isn't really a penalty if you have 12 more agility by level 10, and that's amplified by Vladimir's offering and then doubled in value when you get an incredibly fast meta style timing. The illusions get that extra agility and thus farm even better, and increasing your farming capabilities overall. Windranger is still one of the best overall heroes in this patch in a core role, and nothing has really changed about her since 7.36. Yes, in 7.37, her tailwind, now called Focus Fire, no longer gives her additional bonus movement speed with Windrun, but honestly no one really cared about that. What she has going for her has remained the same since forever. 1, she's a fantastic laner. The Bracer nerf definitely hurt her damage output, but not enough to have her lose lanes, as she still hits really hard and soaks the laning XP without ever being bullied out thanks to Windrun and Power Shot to secure the range creep. 2, she's a fantastic hero killer, and that's how she farms her gold. Her build is so strong in stopping a lot of elusive mid laners like Puck, Storm, Ember Spirit, even Primal Beast that just love to force fights and ganks and immediately run away without being able to catch them. Thanks to Gleipnir and Shackle Shot on top of Windranger's damage, she can actually come into those mid-game fights pretty early and just outright hold them down so those enemies can be then focus fired to death. So she's not the quickest farmer compared to some other safe laners that we've mentioned, but she is a staple pick and can be played anywhere to adjust against the enemy's draft, and she comes online really early to farm some gold from pickoffs. When your momentum pays off, you can double down on that damage with a Daedalus or opt for some consistency with Black King Bar and an Ag Scepter. She plays well even as a mid or offlaner, and she should be familiar to play for anyone who is looking for a safe place to start in patch 7.37. In terms of honorable mentions, I want to mention the growing popularity of Phantom Assassin with the methodical facet, now having her moment to shine finally as the meta shifts, as well as maybe a Troll Warlord I want to talk about with his versatility and itemization. But I want to stop and mention one more hero that's becoming a product of the meta, and that's Slark. With the rise in popularity of Morphling, Dragon Knight, and Sven, Slark emerges from the shadow to take all their armor and attack speed away from their agility. In 7.37, they did improve Slark's late gameness from his level 20 and 25 talents, and they have been improving his early game with buffs to Barracuda across 7.36 and 3 additional base damage in 7.37. But what really makes him shine is both his itemization and counter to a lot of these current popular rivaling carries that makes him really stand out. He still loves to go Diffusal Blade, Mage Slayer if need be, and Bloodthorn, as the nerf has no effect on him or how he utilizes the item. This makes playing as Morphling very difficult, as you will be silenced, lose your agility, and thus damage and armor, but also take increasingly more damage as the fight persists with Slark. Slark also loves going Ag Scepter, a perfect way to pin down heroes that don't like to be stalled or kited, like Sven or Ursa, while also disjointing their targeting through the Ag Shard ability, Depth Shroud, and of course his ultimate Shadow Dance. Not to mention that Dark Pack means he is dispelling the Telegraph stuns like Sven's Stormhammer or outright cancelling Ursa's Bear Down facet benefits. You can't have his debuff durations last longer if the debuff can be dispelled every 6 seconds with Slark. Really interesting hero, and I think we'll be seeing him more and more until he gets counterpicked. Alrighty, cool. Well, let me know what you guys think in the comments, as well as what videos you want to see next. And if you want to see these heroes tested in real time, check me out on Twitch.